This vegetable soup casserole is going to be amazing. We're getting close to the end of summer, and even though there's still a lot of great produce, it's going to come to an end soon, so that means that we have to take advantage while we still can. Like a lot of my other recipes, this one is a bit of an experiment because I'm trying to make something out of some vegetables, beans, and pasta that I have on hand. I'm not quite sure what to call this creation, but I'm going to call it vegetable soup casserole because it has not only a lot of vegetables, but also pasta and crackers, two things that you normally associate with soup. Although this casserole is vegetarian, I'm sure you could add a little bit of meat if you wanted. I'm going to include a photo of the vegetables I started off with. Let me see if I can remember everything. I had a big zucchini, a small yellow squash. I had a small tomato, an ear of corn, red bell pepper, purple onion. What else was there? A tomato, a small eggplant. I would say I had about 3 pounds worth of vegetables in total. What I did is I grated the squash and zucchini on a cheese grater, just like I did with my casserole, my squash and zucchini casserole. But instead of sauteing the squash and zucchini, I microwaved it for about 6 minutes. Well, I'd say I did 2 batches for about 4 or 5 minutes each, and it turned out great. The carrot, red onion, and red bell pepper I sauteed on medium heat in a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of canola oil. And then after 5 minutes, I added, what did I add? I added the corn kernels, then I cooked that for 2 minutes. Then I added the tomato and cooked that for 3 more minutes. So 10 minutes total. And then I turn off the heat and set it aside. I also realized I had some beans. I buy 1 pound bags of beans usually, and when I make beans, I'll do 100 grams at a time. It's a little under a quarter of a pound. So eventually I have 50 grams left, just a little bit. And I had some pinto beans, and I said, you know what? Why don't I simmer those? So I brought these to a boil and then simmered them for 2 hours. And I did the same with some, in Spanish, these are called alubias. I think cannellini beans in English. They're just a large white bean. I did an hour and a half for these. I might not add those, I might just eat those tomorrow. But I needed to get rid of those. I microwaved the eggplant, and then I had 4 ounces or a quarter of a pound of elbows left over from when I made my macaroni and cheese pie. To make it a full meal, I'm adding the beans, and I'm also doing 1 8-ounce block of sharp cheddar. Half will go inside the casserole, half will go on top, along with a quarter cup of sour cream, 60 grams. Speaking of which, I'm going to add a cup or 240 grams of sour cream to the casserole, along with 1 packet of onion soup mix, which I love. I'm also going to add some spices, half a teaspoon each of basil, oregano, parsley, black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. Then I'm also going to add like 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. 1 egg to help hold everything together. And because this is kind of watery still, just like with the squash casserole, 1 3.3-ounce sleeve of Ritz crackers inside of the casserole and 1 sleeve on top. Even though I do already have some starch, that starch I don't think is really going to help absorb the liquid. That is actually a lot of sauteed vegetables, so I may not add all of it. I'm going to start putting everything into this bowl, mixing it together and seeing how much is in here. I may not use everything. It won't go to waste. We will see. So, time for a change in plans. As you can see, everything in the bowl is super colorful. I tried it. It tastes amazing, but there's still crackers, beans, and pasta. My 8x8 casserole dish was obviously not going to be big enough, so I brought out my 9x13 and I buttered it. Now I'm going to add the onion soup mix to the sour cream. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to add it directly to the vegetables. That makes a lot more sense. And I'm going to add the sour cream. And I'm going to start mixing. I'll scrape that later. With the cheese, see, I'm going to use a big spoon. With the cheese and the pasta and the crackers and everything, I'm probably just going to mix that together in the dish, the 9x13 casserole dish, because this is getting to be kind of full. Like I said, I'm not totally surprised that I'm going to need to use a bigger dish. I thought about only using part of what I had, but it doesn't make any sense if you're trying to use up a carrot to only use half of the carrot, or half of the bell pepper, or half of something. So that is why I am now making a bigger batch. I tasted the casserole filling mixture and I liked it, so I went ahead and added the egg. I also added a bit of salt as well, but that's optional. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add everything to my dish. Like I said, I think trying to mix everything in this bowl would be a lot of quilombo, as the Argentines would say, a lot of hassle. So the final mixing I'm going to do in this casserole dish. My pasta, my beans, some of my cheese, and then I'm going to put in my vegetables. And then I'm going to mix. Then I'm going to add more of the pasta and vegetables until everything is in the dish. Meanwhile, I'm going to preheat my oven to 350. My vegetable soup casserole is now in the dish. As you can see, it's actually pretty deep in the dish. There's absolutely no way that this would have fit into an 8x8 casserole dish. I've been trying to smooth it out like that, and now I'm going to put on the topping. Off to the side, you can see I mixed together the half of the 8-ounce block of cheese along with the 1/4 cup of sour cream, and then I added just a dash, maybe an 1/8 of a teaspoon each, of all the same spices. I have my other sleeve of crackers, and I'm just going to crush them over the top. Even though I'm calling this vegetable soup casserole, maybe it's better to call it leftover casserole, or clean out the kitchen casserole, because I am definitely cleaning out the kitchen with this. And I think it's important to know how to make recipes, but at the same time it's important to know how to cook this off the top of your head, because sometimes you have to make a meal and you don't have enough to make a normal recipe, so you have to get creative. One of my friends, her dad likes to cook, and her dad once said, you know if you're a good cook, there's my oven. He said, you know if you know how to cook, if you can make a meal without going to the grocery store and just using what's at home. And I think that is true. So the crackers are on top. Now I'm going to take my cheese and sour cream mixture, and I am going to put it in blobs over the top. Usually this is enough for an 8x8 casserole dish. I know this has bigger surface area, so it's not going to cover it quite as nicely. So I might have to go through with my fingers and crumble it like cheese. But I'm sure it will all turn out absolutely delicious. Everything except for the egg is cooked. Just gotta cook the egg and melt the cheese. So I'm gonna do this with my fingers. I will bring you back. I just pulled the casserole out of the oven. It was in at 350, uncovered, for 30 minutes. Although unconventional, this casserole looked and smelled really good, so I was really eager to give it a try. This vegetable soup casserole was actually really delicious. Like I said earlier in the video, I made up this recipe because I didn't want some odds and ends that I had to go to waste. Whenever you're experimenting, you're never quite sure how it's going to turn out, but this actually was very good. Using a variety of vegetables definitely made this flavorful, and I think that the eggplant, the corn, and the red bell pepper were the three things that came through strongest. The spices, sour cream, and onion soup mix added a ton of flavor and moisture. But I was actually really surprised by just how well the beans and the pasta worked in this. They added texture and flavor, and they also upped the protein content, especially since I used whole wheat pasta. The Ritz crackers inside of the casserole helped to soak up some of the excess moisture so that it was moist but not too moist. And the Ritz crackers on top added a nice bit of crunch. The cheddar cheese was the perfect finishing touch because it acted as a salty, tangy glue that held the casserole together. Like I said, I really liked the flavor combination as well as the combination of textures, the soft, moist interior together with the crispy top. The only thing that I did not like was that some of the elbow noodles on top of the casserole dried out a bit. It really wasn't a big deal, but if you're really concerned about that, you might want to add some extra cheese to the top. I was also really surprised by how filling this casserole was. As you can see, I had to use my big 9x13 dish, and it was also really thick. Since the ingredients themselves were so abundant and filling, this lasted me more than one day. Like I've already said multiple times, this vegetarian vegetable soup casserole was amazing. In all honesty, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Experiments don't always work out. I'm thinking of doing a kitchen fails video so you can see all the recipes that don't make it to YouTube. But sometimes things do work out. They work out a lot better than you think that they're going to, and it's awesome. This recipe definitely proves that what my friend's dad said is true. You know if you're a good cook if you can take what you have on hand and make a delicious meal. If you have leftovers, definitely give this recipe a try. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.